Good morning. I'm MJ from Linus Publications, and today we're going to have a session on Iceland. I know you're saying, why Iceland? Well, last week when I was actually pulling up charts for Greenland, I inadvertently pulled up charts for Iceland. And after looking at Iceland, I thought this is really very interesting. And I thought some people that are trying to learn astrology might actually be interested in seeing this. So I said, let's do a session on Iceland. For people that don't know, Iceland is a country that is almost 98% reliant on self renewals for energy. And that means they use hydro and geothermal energy. They use a small amount, probably about, I think it's 2% of gasoline or gas to be able to power cars and for some remote areas. So they're pretty reliant on their own energy, which is pretty amazing. And I thought that sort of plays into what I'm seeing in their charts. So I thought maybe it would be interested to take a look at this. Now, one note here we're looking at probabilities. I am primarily driven to provide probabilities, meaning that as an astrologer, I don't try and go back and analyze existing situations unless it's for a learning thing, research. I've done a few of those because I thought people might be interested in it. So in this case, Iceland is primarily driven by looking at probabilities here. What is going to happen with Iceland? Okay. So let's start off that most of these, except for one, are going to be transits. And the last one will be a progression. So first thing we have is Pluto trying Neptune. Oh my. This is incredible. We've got all this force, in effect, control, drive, ambition, going towards Neptune. Neptune is ideals. So, sort of philosophical. What is that country, standing for? So it is a very important step in this country's path. This will not happen often in their countries. I mean, Pluto takes about 256 years to go around the whole chart. In that period of time, in this case, Neptune would have 2 trines. So again, it doesn't happen often. So let's take a look at what is Pluto. Well, it is in effect the deep. Think of it as a volcano. It's all that power that's under there. Okay, bubbling up. So they're harnessing that. Trying Neptune. What else are they harnessing? They're harnessing the hydropower. Neptune is also water. But it also means that Pluto and Neptune combined here, Pluto with all that power can actually harness what they want for their country. So important. And there's a lot of symbolism here. Now that's happening 922. So it's at a retrograde motion at that point. And Pluto typically has a forward, a backward, and a forward motion when it hits a planet. In this case, we're on the backward piece. So we might have some indication in the news about something that's going on, but it comes back again on the forward motion. And that's when we will probably see the news again about this. It's not going to be earth-shattering. It's not going to be like clickbait, but it's something important in the evolution of that country. So let's take a look at the next thing we have, and that's on 10/24 of 25. In this case, we've got Saturn squaring Sun. This is the foundation, squaring the Sun. This is saying, okay, it's tense, so it's restrictive. Saturn is trying to get that country to focus on what? Its ideals, its identity. That's what the Sun is. So it's saying, wake up, do something here. A lot of times we talk about Saturn as being very restrictive. It is, but the Saturn is also an enforcer. It's also the teacher. It's trying to make you focus on something now that can be very painful that you don't want to face, but you need to face that to have progress in your life. So in this case, think of it as you have a coach, a personal coach that helps you with your fitness, and you are trying to lift a set of weights, and it is just too hard. You can't do that. And you're just struggling with lifting it. And the coach is there telling you, do it, do it. That's what Saturn is. Saturn is pushing you, sometimes in directions you don't want to go in, or pushing you to face things. So in this case, what is Saturn pushing Iceland to face? Well, we don't know. At some point, we'll probably find out. Maybe around this 1024 period, where Saturn is telling Iceland, wake up. The next thing we have is Pluto coming back. That's on 11/4. It is trining Neptune again. So bringing up, and again, this could have to do with its renewables. Maybe it's countries coming in to see how they're doing it. Maybe Greenland decides to do 100%. Maybe they start exporting some of this energy. But it seems to have something to do with that. And also to do with being able to move towards their ideals. And that seems to be important. Now, in 11/12, we have Neptune squaring Saturn. Neptune is what? Your ideals, what you believe in, things like that. Saturn is the foundation. In this case, the foundation of this country. So what's happening here? You've got some erosion of the foundation. And let's think of an analogy here. So Saturn is it's a structure. So we need to have structure. And in a country, it's usually things like our institutions. So let's take a look and say that Saturn in this case is what? It is a state. It's a castle. It's surrounded by, big walls. Walls to protect that castle. The walls are manned by people, by the guards. And then you have Neptune come in. What's Neptune? Confusion. Think of this as a fog. The fog comes in. It is so thick that the guards can't even see if the walls have been breached. More importantly, they can't see if there's an enemy approaching. That's what Neptune square Saturn does. It confuses the issues. Sort of like distracting, sort of like what people do in politics now with the gaslighting. They distract you so you can't see what their actual aim is. So, next thing we have is Saturn coming around to square the sun. And again, this is where Saturn is telling you, wake up. You need to make plans. You need to focus. You need to move in a path. And what is it? To ensure the identity of this country. Now, let's take a look at where this is. And that's on 12/31. So right at the end of the year that comes about. So let's take a look at the progression. This is for next year. And this is actually Pluto trining the sun. So that isn't awesome. It's such a powerful angle. Pluto, all this force onto what? Their identity. So let's think of an analogy here. We have a steam engine, locomotive, and we have the conductor there, and we have all the fuel. So we start feeding all that fuel into the engine. At some point, the conductor pushes those levers forward. And you know what happens? You have this huge, immovable structure that you can't deter, and it's going to get to its target. So that's what like Pluto trining sun is. It is this feeding into, in this case, the identity. It is this force. It's all this energy moving forward. So it's good. So we'll come back at some point and see if anything I've said here actually comes about. And I hope you enjoyed this and have a great day. Bye now.